Okay, in this video I want to review with you factoring quadratic trinomials first of all, and then show you how you can use that skill of factoring those trinomials to solve quadratic equations of the form f of x equals 0. So let's take, for example, this quadratic trinomial x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0. So in previous videos we found first of all that quadratic equations or quadratic functions factor into two factors, something that looks like a times b. And when we have a quadratic equation where that's equal to 0, then we know that we solve that once we have it factored by setting a equal to 0 and then setting b equal to 0 and solving for the appropriate x. So in our case, let me just copy this over to the other slide. We've got this trinomial. And so one nice trick that I learned a long time ago for factoring trinomials that made it easier for me. Some of you may already know how to do this, and there's no problem. You factor it however you've been factoring it. But consider the coefficient of the square term, which we usually call a, and this term c. Multiply those together. So in this case I have 1 times minus 12, so I have here minus 12. And now try to think of factors of minus 12 that will equal to this coefficient here of the x term, which we call b. So in our particular case we have minus 12, b is 1, so I'm looking for the factors of minus 12 that equal to 1, and so that's going to be a plus 4 times a minus 3, because 4 minus 3 equals 1. So I found the two factors in question. And I've always found factoring by grouping easier to do, and it requires me to remember less. So let's factor by grouping. So just follow me and see if this is true. It is true that x squared plus 4x minus 3x minus 12 is the same thing as x squared plus x minus 12, right? Because the minus 4x plus 3x, this part right here, is just plus x. But what I've done when I've written it as the minus 4x minus the 4x minus 3x, which I got from there, is that I've made 4 terms here. So I don't have a trinomial anymore. I have 4 terms, and so I can factor 2 terms each and see what happens from there. So let's look at where we're at now, if we're okay with that step. I'm just going to put this on another slide so we can see it. So here I am. I've got 4 terms. Well, I'm going to group the first 2 terms and the last 2 terms, and when I do that, I have x squared plus 4x. They're grouped together. And then I have plus, and when I have minus signs, I have to be careful with them. Inside the parentheses, I have minus 3x minus 12. All right, so in these first 2 terms here, I see that I have a common x that can come out. So I'm going to factor that out. I've got x times x plus 4. And over here in my second 2 terms, I see that I have a common minus 3, so I'm going to factor that out. So careful with the signs, factor out a minus 3, and then what's left on the inside? When I take a minus 3 out of minus 3x, that's going to leave me with an x, and I take a minus 3 out of a minus 12, that's going to leave me with a plus 4. Now look at what's happened here, because this is always going to work out as long as I pick my factors correctly in that first step. In this first term, I have an x plus 4. And in the second term, I have an x plus 4. So that x plus 4 can now be factored out because it's common. It's the greatest common factor between both of the 2 terms. When I factor out the x plus 4 from the first term, it's going to leave me with just the x. When I factor it out of that second term, which is a minus 3 times x plus 4, it's just going to leave me with a minus 3. Notice I now have the 2 factors, x plus 4 times x minus 3. And I was trying to solve a quadratic equation, f of x equals 0. So now these are set equal to 0, because since I factored my quadratic function, this is now my a and this is my b. So let's go to one more slide here so we can finish this up. Just going to copy that. And so here's where I'm at. I've got my a times b equals 0. So I'm ready to set each of those factors equal to 0. So x plus 4 is equal to 0. I solve that by subtracting 4 from both sides, and I get x is equal to minus 4. And then my second factor is x minus 3. I have to set that equal to 0. I add 3 to both sides, and I get x is equal to 3. And so I've used my neat little way to factor trinomials, set that equal to 0, and then solve for each of the factors equal to 0, and I found that the solution to that quadratic equation, which was x squared plus x minus 12 equals 0, it has solutions x equal minus 4 and 3.